I've never liked my neck. I don't like my neck. Never liked it. Okay. Very few people know that Mark Twain Samuel Clemens wrote a major work on Joan of Arc. Still fewer know that he considered it not his only most important work, but also his best work. He spent 12 years in research and many months in France doing archival work, and then made several attempts until he felt he finally had the story he wanted to tell. He reached the conclusion about Joan's unique place in history only after studying in detail accounts written on both sides, the French and the English. A remarkably accurate biography of the life and mission of Joan of Arc, told by one of the country's greatest storytellers. Anyway, she's a real person, history, and she was speaking to Jesus. So, and she really accomplished what she accomplished, and then she really experienced that persecution. Did I forget to? We were doing. Joan told the king what the deep secret was that was torturing him. Oh. When Joan, it's morning, 8 morning. So I like to wake up in the middle of the night. But I had 3 alarms set for 3 a.m., 3:30, and 4 because I start at 5. And I dreamed very detailed dreams that needed me to fix a clock in them 3 times. So for all 3 alarms, I sleepwalked through fixing the phones, which was turning on the alarms. When Joan told me, then I woke up very close to 5 and just came over in my pajamas. When Joan told the king what the deep secret was that was torturing his heart, his doubts were cleared away. He believed she was sent of God, and if it had been let alone, he would have set her upon her great mission at once. But he was not let alone. Tremoille and the holy fox of Reims knew their man. All they needed to say was this, and they said it. Your Highness, says her voices have revealed to you by her mouth a secret known only to yourself and God. How can you know that her voices are not of Satan and she is his mouthpiece? For does not Satan know the secrets of men and use his knowledge for the destruction of their souls? It is a dangerous business, and your Highness will do well not to proceed in it without probing the matter to the bottom. And again, the truth about Satan proves as Jesus Christ. I saw Satan fall like lightning. So the Judeo-Christian God says there's a Satan. Crawley. That was enough. It shriveled up the king's little soul like a raisin. With terrors and apprehensions, and straightway he privately appointed a commission of bishops to visit and question Joan daily, until they should find out whether her supernatural help hailed from heaven or from hell. The king's relative, the Duke of Alençon, 3 years prisoner of war to the English, was in these days released from captivity through a promise of a great ransom. And the name of fame of the maid having reached him, for the same filled all mouths down and penetrated to all parts, he came to Chinon to see with his own eyes what manner of creature this might be. The king sent for Joan and introduced her to the Duke. She said in her simple fashion, "You are welcome. The more of the blood of France that is joined to this cause, the better for the cause and it." Then the two talked together, and there was just the usual result. When they parted, the Duke was her friend and advocate. Joan attended the king's mass the next day, and afterwards dined with the king and the Duke. The king was learning to prize her company and value her conversation, and that might well be. Hang in there, Joan. For like other kings, he was used to getting nothing out of people's talk but guarded phrases, colorless and non-committal, or carefully tinted to tally with the color of what they said themselves. And so this is the kind of conversation only vexes and bores and is wearisome. But Joan's talk was fresh and free, sincere and honest, and unmarred by timorous self-watching and constraint. She said the very thing that was in her mind and said it in a plain, straightforward way. In a plain, straightforward way. One can believe that to the king this must have been like fresh, cold water from the mountains to parched lips used to the water of the sun-baked puddles of the plain. After dinner, Joan so charmed the Duke with her horsemanship and lance practice in the meadows by the cattle of Chinon, whither the king also had come to look on, that he made her a present of a great black war steed. Every day the commission of bishops came and questioned Joan about her voices and her mission, and then went to the king with their report. These pryings accomplished but little. She told as much as she considered advisable, and kept the rest to herself. Both threats and trickery were wasted upon her. She did not care for the threats, and the traps caught nothing. She was perfectly frank and childlike about these things. She knew the bishops were sent by the king, that their questions were the king's questions, and that by all law and custom a king's question must be answered. Yet she told the king in her naive way at his own table one day that she answered only such of those questions as suited her. The bishops finally concluded that they couldn't tell whether Joan was sent by God or not. They were cautious, you see. There were two powerful parties at court. Therefore, to make a decision either way would infallibly embroil them with one of these parties. So it seemed to them wisest to roost on the fence and shift the burden to other shoulders. And that is what they did. They made final report that Joan's case was beyond their powers, and recommended that it be put into the hands of the learned and illustrious doctors of the University of Poitiers. Then they retired from the field, leaving behind them this little item of testimony, wrung from them by Joan's wise reticence. They said she was a, quote, gentle and simple little shepherdess, very candid, but not given to talking. It was quite true in their case, but if they could have looked back and seen her with us in happy pastures of Domremy, they would have perceived that she had a tongue that could go fast enough when no harm could come of her words. So we traveled to Poitiers, or Sydney Poitiers, but it's Poitiers, to endure there 3 weeks of tedious delay while this poor child was being daily questioned and badgered before a great bench. What? Military experts? Since what she had come to apply for was an army and the privilege of leading it to battle against the enemies of France. Oh no. It was a great bench of priests and theology. Instead of setting a military commission to find out if this valorous little soldier could win victories, they set a company of holy hair splitters and they set, I like this, priests and instead of setting a military commission to find out if this valorous little soldier could win victories, they set a company of holy hair splitters and phrasemongers to work to find out if the soldier was sound in her piety and had no doctrinal leaks. The rats were devouring the house, but instead of examining the cat's teeth and claws, they only concerned themselves to find out if it was a holy cat. If it was a pious cat, a moral cat, all right. Never mind about the other capacities. They were of no consequence. Joan was as sweetly self-possessed and tranquil before this grim tribunal, with its robed celebrities, its solemn state, and imposing ceremonials, as if she were but a spectator and not herself on trial. She sat there solitary on her bench, untroubled and disconcerted, the science of the sages with her sublime ignorance, an ignorance which was a fortress. Arts, wiles, the learning drawn from the books, and all the like missiles rebounded from its unconscious masonry and fell to the ground harmless. They could not dislodge the garrison which was within, Joan's serene great heart and spirit, the guards and keepers of her mission. It's a really good sentence. She sat there solitary on a bench untroubled and disconcerted, the science of the sages referring to sublime ignorance. And ignorance, which was a fortress. Arts, wiles, the learning drawn from books, and all the like missiles rebounded from its unconscious masonry and fell to the ground harmless. She answered all questions frankly, and she told all the story of her visions and of her experiences with the angels and what they said to her, And the manner of the telling was so unaffected and so earnest and sincere, and made it all seem so lifelike and real, that even that hard practiced court forgot itself and sat motionless and mute, listening with a charmed and wondering interest to the end. And if you would have other testimony than mine, look in the histories and you will find where an eyewitness giving sworn testimony in the rehabilitation process says that she told that tale with a noble dignity and simplicity. And as to its effects, says in substance what I have said. 17, she was 17, and all alone on her bench by herself, yet was not afraid, but faced that great company of erudite doctors of law and theology, and by the help of no art learned in the schools, but using only the enchantments which were hers by nature, of youth, sincerity, a voice soft and musical, and an eloquence whose source was the heart, not the head, she laid that spell upon them. Now, was not that a beautiful thing to see? Now, wasn't that a beautiful thing to see? If I could, I would put it before you just as I saw it. Then I know what you would say.